This is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Today we're going to talk about a very important subject. How do you start to lead a healthy, raw foods lifestyle? That's a question that often comes up for people that are either A, getting into it fresh and new and never even heard about it, or people that have even been doing it a while and maybe they want to better what they're doing. So I'm here to share with you what I've learned over the last 15 years being on a 99.999% raw foods diet myself. And it is really easy, it doesn't take big internet super websites to sell you the latest and greatest raw food concoctions in packages, bottles, or jars. What it takes is what we're looking at right here. I'm in nature, I'm at a local park, nice water behind me. Right behind the camera is a whole bunch of blackberry bushes. And what it takes really is fresh foods that are available in nature. So if you can't get out to nature and harvest your own fresh foods, which is probably one of the best things to do, you could grow it yourself. So I do teach people how to grow their own food at home. Any time of the year, you could grow fresh sprouts in your kitchen, whether they're in soil or they're in, jars or sprout bags or other ways. But eating fresh food is the most important concept in raw foods that most people miss. They go to the health food store, they look for the raw food section. Well, you know what? They should be going to the produce section. Over the produce section, it should say raw and living foods over the produce section because that's what they are. And most people think, oh, raw foods are the foods in the raw food section. No, we want to be eating fresh produce. I look at a lot of things in life very pragmatically. And it's really simple. It's just like this. Animals in nature, I've seen birds and other animals on this walk here today. And they eat foods out of nature. Birds eat the berries off the trees, chipmunks collect the nuts, and, all the animals eat foods out of nature. And so do we. We want to eat the foods out of nature. But we're been so conditioned by our consumerism society that we need to consume, and buy. And that we need to go to the store or health food store or grocery store or restaurant to get our food. Well, nothing could be further than the truth than that. We want to go to nature for our food, and it's only when companies, businesses, and people that want to make money off you get involved when they want to harvest the food and then sell it to you, whether they wild harvest it, which is pretty rare these days, they grew it themselves, or they processed it, packed it, or bought it and are reselling it and did an added value service like making dehydrated crackers out of the raw flax seeds that they bought. We want to get back to the closest point where food comes from, and that is nature. That's where I am today, and that's why I thought I'd come here to make this video. So I know you're thinking, okay, John, how does that help me? How do I start raw foods? Well, you could start by wild harvesting your own foods in your local area, growing your own sprouts, or growing your own garden to have your own food, because that is the best. I'm going to teach you the best and shortest path to health that I've learned. If you're going from, here to New York, you're not going to go through Texas and through Mexico and then get to New York. That's like a really indirect line. And there's many people and raw food teachers that maybe don't teach the most accurate and direct line to the goal, which in my opinion, the goal should be health. You are what you eat, after all. So I'm going to teach you the best and quickest way to get to that place of health and taking a straight direct line. So how does knowing that nature and foods that come from nature help you on your raw foods path? Well, the reason why I bring this up is because, it all starts with a solid foundation. And knowing that food comes from nature is one of the key things that I think that has made it possible for me to be successful on raw foods, because there's other people in the raw foods movement that may, lead you to believe you need to buy products that are not found in nature. Things in cans, bottles, and jars. And it's a fairly big movement. They have a lot of money behind them to promote these products that, you buy in packages. Why? Well, because somebody makes a profit off of them. And when money gets involved, things get convoluted, in my opinion. So I want to teach you the most direct route to being the healthiest you can be on raw foods, because that's what I needed to do. I had a life-threatening illness, and I needed to learn how to rebuild my health on raw foods. So that's been my research for the last 15 years on how to do just that. So I'm happy to share this information with you because I'm happy to be alive, and I was given a second chance at life, and my second chance at life was for a reason. And I think we all have purposes to be on earth, and one of my purposes is to share this knowledge and to help others and to live in service. And that's why I make many of these videos that I do. So you might be thinking, John, how does all that stuff about nature and food coming from the wild help me start raw foods? Well, you know what? In my opinion, it gives you a solid background and a solid foundation on where all the foods come from. So with that like mindset, you could now see what you should be eating. And that will be hopefully concreted in your memory now, because if you don't remember anything else from this video, remember that we want to be eating freshest foods as possible, because all the other animals on earth, right, they eat foods fresh. Think about it. They go out and they eat some plants and it's just fresh off the plant. Actually, the plant is still alive while they're eating it. Most of the foods are eating fresh. And in our standard world now with commerce and shipping and, food's harvested in California, then it's shipped in a truck across the country to the other side of the country, and food's shipped all over the place. And by the time you get it, it's just not as fresh as it could be. That's why growing your own food or wild harvesting food in your area is so important, because it gives you that extra little advantage that most people aren't getting. Even if you do a raw foods diet out of Whole Foods, that's better than a standard American diet out of McDonald's. But it's not as good as a raw foods diet coming directly out of your front yard. Why? Well, there's things called prana, chi, biophotons, life force that are actually in the foods that all other animals get when they're eating foods, because they're eating their foods fresh, and they're literally fresh picking it and eating it right then and there, and we're not getting it. And that's something that's not really talked about a lot in raw foods. So the freshest quality and highest quality foods have the highest vibrancy, life force, and also nutrition. There's studies that show that within 24 hours of picking produce, certain nutrients, up to 50% of certain nutrients, are lost. Does that mean all the lettuce at the Whole Foods, at your local health food store are bad? Absolutely not. It's always good, better, best. The stuff at Whole Foods is way better than probably the stuff at the supermarket in some cases. But, it's not as good as wild harvesting or growing your own. And I want you to strive for doing the best you could possibly do. If the best you could do, if you live in Brooklyn or New York City, and you could grow your own sprouts, but you can't, you could go to the farmer's market. That's probably better than the Whole Foods. You want to be eating the highest quality food at all times whenever you possibly can. So how do you start and get into raw foods? How do you get more raw foods into your diet? Well, instead of thinking, how can I get more raw foods into my diet? Think, how can I get more fresh produce as highest quality as possible into my diet? So whether you need to, if you live in New York, you have an amazing resource. Wild Man Steve Brill will take you on a walk in Central Park and show you all the wild foods to eat in the park. And that's probably one of the best things you could do if you live in New York, a city area. Or go to your local farmer's market, because those foods are often fresh picked the day or sometimes the morning of the farmer's market. That's much fresher. But what else can you do to increase your percentage of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables in your diet? Well, first you got to get the highest quality. So go to the supermarket, go to the health food store, go to Whole Foods if you don't have a farmer's market, if you're not growing it yourself, and then just start eating it. It's very simple. It's not that hard. And we want to be eating minimally processed or unprocessed foods. So what that means is you don't want to be buying anything that's in a container, package, or bottle, or jar, and anything that has a label. You want to be eating things that are unlabeled because you could just look at it and know what it is. Oh, that's a head of lettuce. It needs no label. That's an apple. It needs no label. That's an orange. That's a pineapple. That's a, whatever it is. You don't want to eat foods with labels. You want to eat fresh produce. And think about, instead of how can I eat raw foods, how can I increase my fresh produce percentage? And it's really simple. There's many ways to increase your fresh produce percentage. You could be like, okay, John, I got all this produce. What do I do with it? Well, you could just, fruits are the greatest snack. Just grab a fruit and eat it. That's a great snack, better than cookies, better than Snickers bars, better than anything. So travel with fruits, hanging out in your car, at your work, at your job. Have a nice bowl of fruits, on your desk or whatever. Looks beautiful, and when you're ready to eat, they're right there. Besides just eating whole fruits and vegetables, because most people probably wouldn't grab a cucumber and start eating it for their lunch, although, I do that sometimes if I'm wandering in my garden and see fresh cucumbers, which you can do, so you can eat, snack on fresh vegetables too, if you like them. That's a really great way to do it. Oftentimes I'll make a dip to dip in with my vegetables, so I'll have a whole bunch of vegetables and I'll make a dressing, for example, One of my easiest dressings is raw macadamia nuts blended up in the Vitamix with fresh orange juice. And I'll blend that up, then I'll make a nice orange cream sauce. I'll dip a vegetable into some of the sauce and eat it. If you can't make the cream sauce, you could always get something like guacamole or salsa or the pico de gallo and dip the vegetables into that to eat more vegetables. Definitely a good way to do it. So eat whole, easiest way, no equipment required. Second way, process them. So you could use a knife to cut up the vegetables. So for example, for kale, I don't generally, although I do sometimes eat a whole stalk of kale, I'll take a piece of kale and just slice it up into small little strips. It's called chiffonade. But anyways, real easy technique to basically make small ribbons out of all the kale. And then when you change the texture of the food, it also tastes different. Another thing I do is take a spiral slicer tool that basically allows you to take zucchinis and even things like butternut squash, put it through this machine that'll basically make long spaghetti-like strands. And people into raw foods call that like raw food spaghetti because it is just 100% vegetables that then are in these nice long spaghetti-like strands, and they have different ones that make different sizes. So there's different sizes from thin ones to fat ones and whatever. But make a raw spaghetti and then put a sauce over that to make it fun and to change the texture. So changing the texture using a knife, a food processor, or even a spiral slicer is another way to increase your raw foods percentage. So another way to increase your raw foods percentage is by blending. So blending is an excellent way to increase your raw foods percentage, and basically what blending does, it just concentrates and breaks down all the fibers so that you could easily drink them. So from things like green smoothies, maybe adding some water. I like to use coconut water in the blender carafe with some bananas, both fresh and some frozen bananas, and maybe like a whole head of spinach or a whole head of kale in there. You basically mask the flavor of the kale, and thereby you could get a whole like bunch of kale in there. I mean, I've also made green smoothies with things like orange juice and 1 whole pound of baby spinach. Blend that up, and basically, you know what? You just taste the orange juice, tastes sweet. And I even fed that to people that don't like green smoothies or don't like spinach, and they liked it. So, making green smoothies is really important. You can also make fruit smoothies. So when you make the fruit smoothie, just, put some fruits in there, blend it up. Obviously, we're not going to use anything like yogurt or anything. You could use, nut milks, almond milk. I like to use coconut milk the best in my smoothies myself. But blending is a really good way to get more raw foods in you, whether they're fruit smoothies or green smoothies. So the next way to increase the raw foods or fresh produce in your diet is by juicing. So juicing is an excellent way to get more produce in. Why? Well, juicing removes the fiber. And there's debate whether juicing or blending is best. Well, I recommend do juicing, do blending, and eat the foods. Any way you could get more fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet is better than probably anything else you could do in your life. Fresh fruits and vegetables are the most important thing in raw foods, in my opinion. So juicing. So I personally juice my vegetables. I tend to blend my fruits or just eat them whole. Why? Well, juicing removes the fiber. When you remove the fiber, you basically get a sugar influx, or like a sugar rush. You're drinking sugar water in most fruit juices. Is that bad? Well, it depends what you're doing otherwise. Any fresh fruit juice is way better than a soda, or even probably a bottled fruit juice for that matter. But it's not as good as a fresh green juice. So, most people probably won't be at the point where fruit juice is a bad thing unless they maybe got some blood sugar sensitivities. So, but overall, I don't necessarily recommend juicing a lot of fruits. But juicing your vegetables is really a good thing to do. Once again, it allows you to concentrate how many vegetables you could get into. So for example, you could take a whole bunch of kale, juice up that kale and get the green juice or the nutrition out of that one bunch of kale without the fiber. And vegetables, specifically kale and some of the leafy green vegetables, are some of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. And the more nutrient dense foods you could eat, the healthier you're going to be, because they have a spectrum of nutrients. And think about cows and elephants. All they eat is greens all day. And they're really strong, but they eat a lot of them. So juicing could basically take those concentrated nutrients, take out the fiber, and then give you basically a glass, which is not even that much, and you'll get the nutrition from that kale or from the spinach or from the watercress or from whatever vegetable you're juicing. So a standard juice I like to make is something like carrot or celery as my base, some greens, kale, collards, spinach, dandelion, arugula, whatever I have, and then some apple to make it sweet. But there's many different juicing recipes you could look up and check out online. So those are some of the ways to get more fresh fruits and fresh vegetables into you by eating whole, processing with equipment or with a knife to cut up, to change the texture, 3, blending, and 4, juicing. Those are the easiest ways to do it. Do one or all of those ways. So knowing how to eat more raw foods, how does that help me start on a raw foods path? Well, to me, that's like the building block to know how to do anything in life. You got to learn step by step and build on your knowledge and build on what you've learned already. So for example, let's say you want to get into bodybuilding. Would you just go and try to pick up like a 500-pound barbell and squat it and lift it up from starting from not lifting anything in your life? Absolutely not. And when somebody tries to go like, oh, I'm going to go 100% raw, and they start tomorrow and they try to do it, in most cases, there are exceptions, of course, most people aren't able to do it because you got to build up to be able to lift that 500-pound barbell. You got to start out by lifting 10 pounds maybe first, then do that for a while, then work up to 20 pounds, then get up to 100, and maybe or maybe not, you'll never be able to get up to 500 pounds. But you know what? You got to start small and slowly increase. And that's the secret to doing raw food successfully, is starting slow and slowly increasing. So whatever your diet is now, you want to continue with it. And you want to slowly but surely increase your raw foods percentage using the techniques that I just shared. So whether you're eating, hamburgers for dinner or, chicken for dinner, whatever, keep that up. That's fine. But every meal, ensure that you eat, a percentage of raw foods before your meal. So when I got into raw, for example, I basically stopped eating my normal breakfast and I would juice 5 cups of juice for breakfast. And that was a great way to introduce me into juicing and raw foods. Then for lunch, I had my normal lunch. Mid-afternoon, I had some more fresh juice. And then for dinner, I had my normal dinner. So that slowly acclimated me to eating more fresh produce or fresh fruits and vegetables into my diet. So how do you start eating raw foods? Well, first, like I just mentioned in my example, I started eating, percentage and increasing my percentage of raw foods. So I basically substitute my breakfast for raw foods, and then mid-afternoon I had raw foods, and then my 2 other meals I basically still ate what I was eating. That's one way to do it, and you can do that way, but also I would encourage you with every meal, you want to eat a good percentage, whatever your percentage of your goal. Say you want to eat 25% more raw foods this month, set that goal and work on just doing it every day. So you have a monthly goal, 25% more raw foods, then break it down to each day. Okay, each day I'm going to eat 25% more raw foods. Here's my plan. I'm going to eat, raw foods or fresh fruits and vegetables for breakfast instead of my normal breakfast. If that's too hard, well, then eat, a good percentage of fruit and then your normal breakfast. So, cut up a whole banana on your oatmeal, or, eat a banana before your French toast, or whatever it is, it's fine. You want to just increase the fruit and vegetable percentage. Maybe an easy way is to make fresh vegetable juice, because that really increases the amount of vegetables you're going to consume into your diet, or a blended smoothie, for example. And those are really easy ways to concentrate more the raw foods and the fresh fruits and vegetables that are coming into you, because you could juice or blend a lot more in most cases than you could actually just sit there and eat, because it's broken down for you. The other thing that's very important is to chew your food. Chew each mouthful at least 50 times to break down all, especially the vegetables, into mush, because our bodies could only absorb nutrients in a liquid state. They can't absorb things that are still, fiber rich, that are full of fiber. The fiber is a cleaner that goes right through us and helps to clean us out. So you want to slowly but surely increase your raw foods percentage. 25% could be your goal for this month. Then break it down. Okay, I'm going to do 25% more, for this day only. And then even shortening it from there, just look at this meal. This meal, I'm going to do 25%. And if you do that, you have the big goal, the smaller goal, the daily goal, then just the meal goal. If you eat 25% every meal, man, you are ahead of the pack. And it's just really simple to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. So for example, if you have a big chicken dinner, Eat a big salad before your chicken dinner. You're going to fill up on the salad first and eat much less chicken, or whatever else you're eating. Hopefully you're still not eating at McDonald's because that's really bad. But if you are, eat a big salad first and then eat the McDonald's and maybe get half the stuff you would normally get. You want to reduce the portion sizes of all the stuff you're eating, that's processed or highly processed foods that come in a can, bottle, or package. So even if you don't go 100% raw, you want to eat the most fresh fruits and fresh vegetables as you possibly can and the least processed foods that you can. So instead of getting soup in a can, cook and make your own soup from fresh, whole ingredients. What I've learned in all this time is that it's just getting back to nature like I'm sitting in, eating things out of nature, eating plants out of nature in their least processed form. So, do we need to get pine pollen from the Himalayas, because that's like the next latest and greatest thing that, some people online are promoting? Well, hey, pine pollen might not be that bad, but you could go and collect some pine pollen yourself, or better yet, you could grow your own plants and collect and eat their flowers, which naturally contain the pollen and a lot of other nutrients. Because once again, pollen's a isolated food. It's not necessarily a whole food in the sense that, you're eating the whole plant and everything that comes with it. When you're eating a flower, you're getting the pollen and all the antioxidants and nutrients in that flower as well. So I hope you've learned more about how to include more fresh fruits and fresh vegetables in your diet, because that is truly the secret to raw foods and the highest quality fresh fruits and vegetables. So start sprouting in your kitchen. Start growing that garden instead of your lawn in your backyard, wherever you can. Buy things at the farmer's market instead of at stores. Get the highest. Go on a wild foods weed walk to learn about the wild foods growing in your area. Eat the highest quality, and you're going to be the healthiest as you can be. Eat unprocessed foods too. Very important. So this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're good stuff.